Morning. It is good to see all of you here. You all set up for afterwards? Oh, he's wearing an MVNU shirt. Did you notice that? It's not a Trevecca shirt. I can't get anyone to wear a Trevecca shirt, but maybe one day. Well, it is great to see all of you here. Thank you for being here for week one of this brand new series, Sleepless in Birdsboro. And if you remember the movie from the 80s, it has nothing to do with that. It's just what's stuck in my head. This is not a relationship series and West Coast, East Coast, nothing like that. It's none of those types of things. It just made me think about where we most of us sleepless here in Birdsboro is kind of where the church is. But I want to tell you a little bit about kind of where this idea came from. And I tried to get a Birdsboro landscape, but there's not a really Birdsboro cityscape. You know, we're not known for our high rises and things around here. So that's from St. Mark's, and about the only thing I could get was the little grain feed from Brown's or whatever that thing is. So anyway, that's about the best skylight, city line thing that I could figure out here. So anyway, it is what it is. So I want to kind of tell you a little bit of kind of where this sabbatical, or where this series came from. So as I prepared this season of the year, this time of the year, way back at the beginning of the year, I knew my sabbatical was going to be, kind of preceding this, coming into this. And I felt like I was going to leave this open. We had the All Church series. It would come right back into that. And then I wanted to leave this open because I felt like God's going to teach me something while I was gone, while I was away. And this series would kind of be born out of that. And so right around week 5, we had finished all the church visits we were going to do, and I was kind of starting to kind of put all that information together, and I was starting to kind of pray about and think about what this series looks like, and what are the insights, the takeaways, the bring homes from all the other churches, and so on and so forth. And I started thinking about like what is the recurring thing? What is the thing that has been constantly happening week in and week out, or what do I feel like has been the theme of this whole sabbatical? And then as I was sitting and thinking about it, this is kind of what came to me, and it wasn't this profound thought. It wasn't this great, deep theological issue. It wasn't this, something I learned from a new pastor friend of mine. What came to me, what I realized was the theme of my sabbatical week after week was people would ask me time and time again when I would go somewhere and they knew I was on sabbatical, whatever they would say, "How was your sabbatical?" And my response each and every time, "How was your sabbatical?" was this: busy. Busy. Too busy. It's not very restful. I wish I'd added 1 or 2 more weeks. I bit off more than I could chew. These are some of the things that I was saying. I wish I'd visited 1 less church, and I even did visit 1 less church. I set out for 5 and made it to 4. Even what was supposed to be restful, like a day with me and Melanie at Disney, we did the most extreme thing we could do and decided to go do all 4 parks in 1 day. And that is not... that's not relaxing in any way, shape, or form. And then we kind of thought, well, we'll go on a cruise. That's relaxing. And then we felt like we had to get off at whatever port we were at and exhaust ourselves running around whatever random city or town we were at so we could make sure we got the most out of our money or whatever it was like. So even the things that we were supposed to do that were supposed to be relaxing or kind of restful weren't that way. And it seemed that everything we did just kind of made us busier and busier and busier. Now, by the time we got back, we had to go pick up our dog, from Virginia. And then I'm like, I don't even want to go do that. Like, can your mom just keep her? Like, can we just figure it out later? But here's what I want to say. I did not plan this sabbatical to be restful. Right? There are times when pastors need a restful sabbatical, and I probably do now, but I did not set out for this one to be restful. I set out for it to be kind of more of a professional and personal growth, which I believe it really, really was. But as I was preparing to come back, as I was thinking about, God, what is it you've been teaching me? What stood out to me was the fact that it was not restful and that I was way too busy. And so that is kind of where this Sleepless series is kind of born out of. We're going to start today by talking about the things that keep us up at night. And I don't mean the things that go like the weird noise that we hear, the house creaks, or you heard outside, and you're like, what? I don't even know what that is, And you're like, is this Sasquatch? Well, I don't know what's going on, right? But not those types of things, not the scary type of things, but just the types of the regular everyday stuff that kind of keeps us from getting rest, from getting sleep. And busyness is certainly one of them. Another one, we'll cover another one of the weeks, is worry. Have you ever lost a night of sleep because you're worried about something, right? And we think week 3 is like, have you ever, the outside noise of the world around us? And again, I don't mean the creaks that go on, but just how busy and how much of a mess the world seems to be around us. How do we tune that out and then get to sleep? And then finally, what happens when we lie down at night and then feel like, I didn't accomplish what I set out to accomplish. I spent a whole day and I don't feel like I did anything with it, right? I'm unfulfilled, right? So that's really kind of what we're going to cover the next couple of weeks in this. And then here's what I do. Here's what I want to say. I hope you're here each week because I know you're losing sleep too, right? Because I asked you last week and we all said, absolutely, this is something that I go through. We're all losing sleep. So I hope you're here throughout the 4 weeks of this series because I know you're losing sleep. And for today, I know there's always too much to do. Like, do you feel that way? Always too much to do, right? Couple of nod heads, thank you. The rest of you just have to suffer through. You're too busy thinking about what you have to do to pay attention. There's always too much to do. Every moment of every day of our lives is packed with so much activity that we're overloaded and we're running on fumes, if not running on empty. And I think those are different things, running on fumes, running on empty. But either way, you're kind of running on absolutely nothing. There was a study a couple years back from Harvard Business School, and they found that 7 out of 10 people describe their life as either busy or very busy. 7 out of 10 describe their life as either busy or very busy. But we probably didn't need a Harvard study to determine that. All you have to do is ask people. People ask me, how was your sabbatical? Busy. You ask people all the time, how was your day? Busy. How was your week? Busy. How many times is that our natural response that we either say or someone else says? We wear busyness like a badge of honor. We wear busyness like it means that we're doing something right. Because we don't ever want to say, I'm not doing anything. Hey, how you doing? It's nothing. I haven't been doing anything. Right? That does not make us sound very good, right? If we're busy, it kind of proves that we're not lazy. If we're busy, it gives the impression that whatever we do, it's really, really important to the national security of the earth or something like that. Being busy kind of shows that, hey, I'm contributing to society. I'm just not sitting back and just kind of taking it all in and just having everybody give to me, right? But what being busy really does. What being really does, it doesn't really do all of those things. What being really does is it just keeps us from sleep the way that we're supposed to. It just keeps us from resting the way that we're supposed to do. The reality is that even if we finally do stop working, which is kind of what we think we can get to rest, I don't mean retirement, I just mean at the end of the day, we still can't really rest. We still can't really fall asleep. We might fall onto the couch, but we didn't fall asleep when we did it. Our mind is still going. We're still thinking about what it is we have to do. So what is it we do instead? We pull up our phone, and then you begin to scroll. You get your nose in other people's business, which then kind of makes you feel like, I'm falling behind. I need to get up and get busy doing something else. And so we're just constantly in this cycle of running and producing and performing and just constantly trying to prove ourselves to people that we don't know or don't care about. And it's absolutely exhausting. Absolutely exhausting. And it is also not the way that God intended for us to live. That's not what he wants for us. That's not how we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to burn the candle at both ends. From the very beginning, he built a rhythm of work and rest that gives life instead of drains it from us. So Genesis chapter 1, I'm going to go to a couple of places. We're going to go to Genesis 1, Exodus 5, and then Matthew 11. But I'm going to give them all up here so you'll know kind of where they are and where they're going. And I hope you can read that right well enough, right? I thought the font was a little too, it's not separated enough, but we'll figure it out. Right? So Genesis 1, actually Genesis 2, and then Exodus 5, and then Matthew 11, if you want to look at it, but not, they'll be up here. So Genesis 1 covers days 1 through 6 of creation. And God created, God did, so on and so forth. And then in chapter 2 begins this way. It says this. It says, thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. And by the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on that day, he rested from all of his work. Right? You probably heard that before. I'll do it again. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. And by the seventh day, God had finished the work that he had been doing. So on that day, he rested from all of his work. And I want to make sure you catch this, right? This is really easy to overlook. You've probably read this passage so many times, you script right on by it, and you're like, when do I get to actually something going on, right? But I want to make sure you catch this. Before sin ever entered the world, that's what's going on here. Sin has not entered the world yet. This is not like after everything has fallen apart. This is when God has just finished what's going on. Before sin ever entered the world, before there was any stress, before there were any deadlines, before anyone was exhausted, God rested. Not because he's tired, that's not who he is, but it's just this is the way it's supposed to be. That's what he does. That's what he does. This is the way it's supposed to be. When it's all said and done, then you rest. What God is modeling for us here is that rest is not supposed to be a luxury. Rest is not the reward for a hard day's work. Rest is the design. Rest is the way it's intended to be. Rest is built into the regular rhythm of everyday life. And then what God is saying here is he invites us to live in that rest as well. That's what he's doing here. And he literally invites us later. We'll finish in Matthew 11. He's inviting us to live in that into that rhythm of rest as well. And sure, work is a part of that rhythm, right? If you go back to Genesis 1, and there you see work is a part of that rhythm. God gave Adam meaningful purpose. He is called to cultivate. He is called to create. He is called to care for what has already been made. Work at this point is not supposed to be a curse. It is a collaboration. Man's work is a collaboration with the Creator. And then built into that is rest. We work and then we rest. And then speaking of Adam, I want to make sure that we catch something else. According to Genesis 1 and 2, day 6 was very, very busy. You go back and read Genesis 1, Genesis 2, day 6 is busy, right? It says, in Genesis 1, it says that God made the animals and then made man. In chapter 2, it says that God made man and then animals. That is not as much of a contradictory as you think. If you want to talk about it later, the Hebrew, and we'll talk about it later, but Genesis 2, the Hebrew, does not say the order the same way it says it. So it's not a contradiction. Ask me later. I'll give you the details. But here's what I want you to get. Either way, God made the animals, God made Adam, and then he asks Adam to name all of those animals. That is I can't even begin to think about naming all of those animals, right? He asks them to do that. And then, so made the animals, made Adam, God, I want you to name him, gives him something to do, and then he makes woman, right? And anytime you get a honey, there's going to come with it a honey-do list. So you know that his day has to be busy. Thank you, I just did that for there. I appreciate saying that, right? But I want you to see that all of this is Adam's literal birthday. This is day 6. This is Adam's literal birthday, kind of day 1 for him. Adam's very first full day, which is the next day, which is day 7, which is the day when when order has come out from the chaos, right? Because what God has just done, he just does in Adam. All these animals are running around with no names, and he names all of them. So he pulls the chaos and then order. He pulls the dark and then the light. It's evening and the morning, and this is Adam's very first day. Day 6, so busy. Day 7, rest. Adam's very full day is a day of rest. And that's the rhythm that God is trying to teach us, is the importance of rest. No matter what's going on, this is what happens next. He had just given him all these other tasks to do. You're going to have to cultivate. You're going to have to care for. You're going to have to create. But before we get into any of that, rest is what we're going to do first. When we ignore that rhythm, we're not just breaking the rule of God. When we ignore this rhythm of rest, we're not just breaking the rule of God, we're using rest in a way that it was not designed to be used. And when you use something in a way that it's not designed to be used, it's only a matter of time before it breaks or it stops working the way that it's supposed to. If you've ever tried to use the wrong tool for something, screwdrivers for hammers or whatever else it happens to be. Like, those things don't work. You don't accomplish what needs to be accomplished. What you're using incorrectly breaks down, and rest is the exact same way. When we do, and we do with it the way that God didn't intend for us to do with it, it breaks down, and then everything else around us kind of breaks down. This is the world that we live in now. We treat rest as the reward. When I've done a good hard day's work, then I get to lay down and decompress. We might even treat rest as optional, or only when it's necessary. Like, I'll rest when I'm dead. We have completely missed what rest is supposed to be. And so we push harder, we fill our schedules tighter, we tell ourselves that this is just the busy season, but the problem is the busy season never ends. And we're anxious, and we're hurried, and we're sleepless, and worst of all, we're disconnected from the design of the one who loves us. He says, this is how it works best, if you'll find rest in me. What Genesis teaches us is that rest isn't laziness, rest is obedience. That's what we see in Adam. Rest is being obedient. Rest is trusting. Rest is saying with our lives what we say with our lips. Rest is living out in our lives what we say with our lips, that God is God and that we are not. That the world keeps spinning even though we don't have to. Right? That's what it comes down to, this idea for rest for us. But somewhere along the way, we lost that rhythm. We stopped marching to that beat. The same humanity, the same people, the same individuals that walked with God in the cool of the day began marching to a different beat. One that was driven by production and pressure and performance. And then by the time we reach Exodus 5, that rhythm is the only one recognizable. We've missed the beat that God says and then found the beat that man has created instead. The setting is this, Exodus chapter 5. I'll give you the 1 or 2 verses that are up there. The setting is this. Moses has just told the people that God has heard their cries. enslaved under Egypt. Moses told the people that God has just heard their cries. He has seen their suffering, and he is about to do something. He is going to act on their behalf, and he is going to bring them some level of deliverance. And in response to that, they bow and worship in this moment. And then in Exodus 5, this is what we get. Moses and Aaron go to Pharaoh and say this. This is what the Lord God of Israel says. Moses and Aaron talking to the Pharaoh. This is what the Lord God of Israel says. Let my people go. Which we know that. We've heard that how many times? Let my people go, because we know they're going to leave, and they're going to leave being enslaved in Egypt, and they're going to eventually move into the promised land. But that's not what happens the first time. Let my people go so that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness. Like, I don't even know we knew that. We thought it's always the other one. Let my people go. But here's where it starts. Let my people go so that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness. This is not permanent departure. That's not what they're looking for here. That's not where this starts. It doesn't start in this permanent departure. Let me get to the promised land. This is just, hey, let's get away for a few days and worship. Let's get away for a few days. Let's break the mold. Let's get out of what we've been doing. Let's break the cycle, and let's get into a few days of worship with God. Let's get a few days to kind of recenter ourselves around our Creator. Let's get a few days to recapture the rhythm that God has intended for our lives, one with work and rest. But Pharaoh has none of it. He is not interested in any way, shape, or form, and he's probably even a little bit shocked that they're even asking. Because first of all, there's no higher authority than himself. He's the Pharaoh. He's the highest that there is. There's no one else any higher. Secondly, the Hebrews had lived in Egypt for 400 years. They were his people. They were his slaves. And how could anyone else claim loyalty or require a feast from his slaves? So he has to be beside himself at this point. This makes no sense to anything he's ever thought about. And this is his response, verse 2. But Pharaoh replied, who is the Lord that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? Who is the Lord that I should obey Israel's voice? Obey his voice and let Israel go. I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go. Right? We want to go, that guy's a meanie, right? We know that that's not right. That does not sound right in any way, shape, or form, right? I don't want you to get too much into that, because clearly I'm setting you up, right? So don't lean into it too much. Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord. I will not let Israel go. And then Moses and Aaron again plead with him, verse 4. And then Pharaoh snaps back. They're like, please let us go. All we want to do is go worship for a couple of days in the desert. And Pharaoh snaps back. He says, why do you take the people away from their work? Get back to your labor. Right? He just kind of doubles down on what it was he'd said before. Right? I'm not letting them go. There's no way they're going to do that. And he kind of takes it a bit farther, and he accuses them of being lazy and then using their religion as an excuse to avoid responsibility. They just want to get out of work. And here's the cruel irony of all of this, right? This is why I told you don't get too crazy, because I'm setting you up. Because we still believe this. We still believe what it is that Pharaoh said. We believe that work is of the utmost importance. We believe that religious practices are an absolute waste of time, valuable time we could spend doing other things. We believe that our worth is determined by our work. Now, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us do, even Christians as well. So all this stuff that Pharaoh says isn't that far-fetched for many of us to believe it day in and day out. I can look at it. I can think about it. When I try and think about people, I sometimes try and look somewhere where I feel like I'm safe. I'm going to look at the clock, right? Now, I don't want you to think I'm looking at the clock and I'm going to speed up or anything like that. I'm just letting you know I'm not looking at anybody. But this is indicative of so many of us as Christians. Work is of the utmost importance. Religious practices are a waste of time. My value in who I am is because of what I produce. We still believe these things. And so what was the labor that Pharaoh wants them to get back to? They were building the empire that enslaved them. The roads, the monuments, the infrastructure, all this stuff that kind of shouted and proclaimed to Pharaoh's greatness was all built by them. But really, what they really did, day in and day out, was they just made bricks. They made these bricks. That's what they did day in and day out. Day after day, sun up to sundown, that's what they did. They made bricks. And the only question that mattered, the only thing that was important was how many bricks did you make today? Because even when they don't make the right amount of bricks, they get in trouble in another couple of verses. So the fact that they're asking for time off to go worship, that just kind of tells Pharaoh they have too much time on their hands. And so what he decides then, if they think they have time to go leave for 3 days and go worship and go rest and create this rhythm that's supposed to, then I'm going to give them more work to do. Because they've got too much time on their hands. And so what he does is verses 6, 7, and 8, I'm going to sum them up quickly. He tells the taskmasters and the officers to increase the work level. Rather than giving them straw that was cut and ready to use so they could just make the bricks, he says, we're not going to give you the straw anymore. You have to go get your own straw. You have to go get all the supplies to build what you want to make. And now that I've added that to you, I'm not going to reduce the number of bricks. It's not like, hey, go get straw, and now I want 10 less bricks. Go get the straw, and I want the exact same amount of bricks. You got all this time. You want to figure out some other way to do it. Then I'm going to make you work harder. And then the officers plead, but then Pharaoh doubles down again. He says, nope, this is what we're going to do. And then he again calls the workers lazy. And so what happens with them, and they get in trouble when they don't produce the bricks that they're supposed to, their lives were ruled by the quota, by the endless demand for more. You don't get to stop creating because you feel like you needed to find some rest. You're still busy working. You're still going to do the thing that I need to do. Now I want you to fast forward a few thousand years, right? 2025. Aren't you glad that our lives don't look like that anymore? Aren't you glad that we don't make bricks for Pharaoh day in and day out? But the problem is we kind of do. This still looks like our lives. We check email multiple times every hour, even on the weekends, just in case we miss something from our boss. Right? We measure our effectiveness by how many items we checked off of our to-do list. How many items we can cross off and say, I finished those. We stay up late tweaking slides. That's really for me. Spreadsheets and schedules. We sign up for one more thing. We take on one more project. We volunteer for one more task. This mindset, this idea, this Pharaoh, like you need to keep working, you don't have time for that, has so kind of creeped into our lives that we ask people, what do you do? Have you ever asked anybody what they do? That is the modern day equivalent of how many bricks do you make? This is ingrained in us. This is what we think is the way to do it. And it is not what God put in us. It's what Pharaoh put in us. It's what the demands of the world put in us. And here's probably the wildest part about all of this. Like we can go, well, what were they going to do? They were slaves. There's nothing else they could do. It was do this or it was die. But we still do this. And it's not Pharaoh who's cracking the whip on us anymore. It's us. It's ourselves. It's not even me doing it to you. It's you doing it to you. Like you take the promotion that pulls you away from your family. Not because you need it, but because you want something more. Right? Go back to the last series and you can talk about finances and you can work your way through that. Right? We sign our kids up for travel ball at age 3 with practices 5 days a week and games on weekends and tournaments all over the state and the U.S. We try to make our houses look like the HGTV versions. We make sure that they're all organized, that the meals are picture perfect. And we have this endless hustle. No one forces us to do that. No one's making you do it. You're choosing yourself. I'm going to take this on for me. I'm going to take this on, and this is the life that I want. A life that's busy and rushed and hurried, and I'm miserable, and I'm sleepless, and I'm constantly missing out on the things that I'm supposed to do. That's the life we choose because it's just the way that life is supposed to be. It's what everybody does. So it has to be normal. It has to be right. The lie we've believed, what's being ingrained in us is that our worth is measured by how much we produce. Still, the Israelites, your worth is how many bricks you produce. We are still measured by how much we produce. That's exactly what Pharaoh wanted for Israel. It is endless output with zero rest. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. Scripture does call us to work with excellence, right? Colossians 3, whatever you do, work at it with your whole being for the Lord and not for men. But somewhere along the way, we stopped working from God's rhythm of rest and instead working for the approval of others. What God created was, here's the rhythm. And then what the world said, what man said, what people said is, here's what I want from you. Here's what you need to do to get ahead. Here's what you need to do to get the raise. Here's what you need to do for the promotion. Here's what you need to do. And so we're looking for the approval for others rather than the rest that God gives us. And when we do that, it leaves us restless. It leaves us sleepless because work done for human praise never satisfied. People always want more. And there is always another brick that needs to be made. You will never finish making the bricks. Gotta make the donuts, right? Wasn't that the Dunkin' Donuts thing, right? You will never finish making, right? You will never finish making the bricks. What God and what Moses and what Aaron are trying to accomplish in the people, what they're trying to teach them, what they want to get them out into the wilderness to help them to recognize is he wants to bring them back to their intended rhythm of rest. We've forgotten it. You've gotten away from it. Let's get back to it. Let my people go so that we can go and worship and rest the way that we're supposed to. Now, I want to clarify what I mean by rest. When I say rest, I don't mean that we slept well. I don't mean we collapsed on the couch while the game was on. Not the Eagles game, obviously, but the other game, right? After a long day, rest is not that we were inactive for a few hours or I just did something mind-numbing for a few hours. I watched, I binged, I played, whatever else. That's recovery. That's different from rest. It is really, really important, but that is not what God is talking about when he says rest. That's not what God is modeling in Genesis chapter 2 when he rests on the seventh day. God didn't kick his feet back on that day, I don't think. Biblical rest, when we understand what God is looking for from us, not recovery, but rest, is a posture of trust. It's stepping out of the grind and saying, God, I believe you're in control. I don't have to worry about what happens the next day because you're still who you are today. And I'm going to rest in you. It's aligning our lives to the rhythm that he set from the very beginning rather than the rhythms of the relentless demands of the world. It is not inactivity. It is being intentional about remaining in God's presence. It is the reminder that we are not defined by how many bricks we make. It is us stepping off the hamster wheel of busyness that goes nowhere and remembering that I am not a brick maker, I am a beloved child of God. My purpose in existence isn't to make bricks for that individual. It's to be who God called me to be. And when I do that, rest is a natural part of that rhythm. So the best news about any of that is what God's getting at. He's not just telling us, hey, stop making bricks. He's not just saying, hey, stop working for Pharaoh. He's not just saying, hey, stop doing all of those things. He's trying to show us that there's a better way to live. That's what Genesis 2 is about. There's a better way to live. But we didn't get it. So then we get the rest of the Old Testament. And then finally we get Jesus who comes online, who comes onto the scene. And we see this idea of rest lived out very clearly in the life of Jesus. When you read through the gospel, I think there's a lot of fascinating, there's a lot of interesting, there's a lot of really good things that kind of stand out about the way that Jesus lived. But here's what I want us to think about. He accomplished all that he's accomplished in 3 short years of ministry. Pretty quick out. 3 quick short years of ministry. And in that time, this is not an exhaustive list, right? In that time, he embraced God's mission for him, the Father's mission for him. He recruited and almost fully trained 12 ragtag disciples. The rest of it happened when they were done, right? He healed the sick. He preached to crowds. He resisted temptations. He confronted Pharisees. He lingered over meals with friends. He noticed people that others ignored. He listened to their stories. He loved hurting people. He didn't love hurting people. He loved hurting people, right? You see the difference, right? I don't want you to think Jesus is a bully, running around with his pipe. He loved hurting people everywhere he went. But what's really interesting, when you read through all of the Gospels, it never says that Jesus was in a hurry. We just don't get it. It's just not there. He never rushed a conversation. He was never looking at his life going like, I wish they would hurry up because I got somewhere else I need to be. He never went like, okay, that's great, I'll get back to you later. That is none of what he did. He never said, hey, hurry up, guys, we're behind schedule. And then literally he walked everywhere he went. Like it's faster for us to trains and drive and what, but he walked everywhere he went. He was busy, but he was never hurried. His days were full, but he was never frantic. This is the way that Jesus lived. In fact, when you look at Jesus' life, he's baptized, beginning of his public ministry. If this doesn't confirm what's in Genesis 2, I don't know what does. Beginning of his public ministry, he's baptized, and then what does he get out? He gets up and goes to work. No, he goes and takes a sabbatical in the wilderness for 40 days. He goes and says, I'm going to go rest. I'm going to go reconnect with God for the next 40 days before I get going on anything that I'm supposed to do on this planet. And then he attends a wedding, and it stays the whole time. Who does that anymore? We don't. We leave early because sometimes you get a little out of hand. Maybe you stay the whole time. I don't know, but that's what Jesus did. He waited until he was at the very end when they're like, hey, the best stuff is gone. He waited till the very end. He lets a young girl die because he's too busy talking to a woman who's had her issue for 12 years. Jesus is just not in a rush. He lets a good friend of his die. 4 days. He just kind of takes his time getting over there. He's never in a rush. In fact, there's a couple times that Jesus is talked about as not walking. He's in boats sometimes, but when into triumphal entry, he's riding a donkey, a baby donkey, into town. I don't know if there's a more non-in-a-hurry animal than a donkey. I mean, I don't know if all donkeys are like Eeyore, but that's what I'm thinking. Now, truth be told, donkeys can run at about 20 miles an hour. I don't know if you knew that or not. Some of them as fast as about 40. But it is not the fastest animal. It is not like, hey, I'm going to get a horse so I can get in here pretty quickly. He rides this donkey to kind of get into town. He walks everywhere he goes. And it's not just about the physical action. I'm not just telling you, hey, exercise more and make sure you walk. I'm telling you that this was the pace of Jesus' life. It wasn't just the physical walking, it was the spiritual pace that he lived out. This is what his life looked like. He was super busy. He was really, really busy, doing way more than we'll ever really accomplish. But somehow, he wasn't hurried. Somehow, he just was unrushed through life. And so if that's the way that Jesus was, and we're going to say that, hey, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, then we have to find ways that we live that way as well. We have to live out of a place of rest. We have to live unhurried. Because Jesus isn't just calling us to believe in him, he's calling us to live the way that he lived. That's what Jesus is asking us to do. So the rhythm was set in Genesis 2. Hey, we rest. And then in Exodus 5, we're not resting. I'm not even going to let you rest, which is the world we live in now. And then Jesus says, no, stop. You're doing it wrong. You're breaking the system. You're breaking the design. Everything else is going to fall apart. I need you to rest. And before Jesus gets into it and he says, hey, I want you to take my yoke upon you, which is a whole level of work I'm not even going to get into. Talk about your small groups. Ask me later. He gives what I think is probably one of the greatest, most freeing invitations in all of Scripture. It's just because I'm saying it today. Another day I'll say something else is. This is what he says in Matthew chapter 11. He says, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. That's what he says. He says, come to me, all you are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. I love to teach you some of these words. So the word weary, right, is kapaiao, right? You don't have to say it, but it means, it's underlined, so you know I was going to kind of give you a little bit about it, right? It means to feel fatigue from work. Like, that's not all that surprising. It's the kind of deep tiredness that comes not just from activity. It's not just, hey, there's a day of busy. It's a day after day after day after day after day after day after day of repeated activity doing the same types of things, right? The word burdened is fortitsu. You don't have to worry about that one either, but it means to be overloaded. It means to carry a weight that is too heavy for one person, which is really significant when Jesus says, take my yoke with me, right? So it's carrying a weight that is too heavy for one person. It is being piled on by responsibilities and pressures and expectations. So when we put the two ideas together, Jesus is talking to the people whose lives are crushed under the weight of constant work, endless demands, and relentless striving. Jesus is talking to the people who feel like they're carrying an incredible weight on their shoulders. Does that sound familiar? How many of us, these words describe us as well? So Jesus is talking to us. This is us every day, weary and burdened, overwhelmed with the same things over and over again, more than we should be able, more than we feel like we should have stacked on us. And so he's talking to us. He's saying, hey, you, overburdened, weary, exhausted. This is what I want you to recognize. Here's the solution to your problem. Come to me and I will give you rest. He's saying, let's go back to what it was way back. Let's get back to the rhythm that we're supposed to live at. He's offering more than a night of sleep. That's not what he wants. He doesn't say, hey, make sure your thing tells you got to get 8 hours. Make sure you go to bed and make your 8 hours. That's not what he's saying. He's not saying, hey, I want you to have a weekend unplugged from everything around you. He's not saying, hey, I want you to go get some well-deserved and needed time away. What he's saying is there's a new way to live. There's a better way to live. That's what he's saying. He says, son, don't just take one little bit and think that that's enough. He says there's a whole lifestyle that is a much better way to live. And then he says, really, it's the original way. It's the way that was created way back when. A way that we move through life with him, a way that we move through at his pace. What Jesus says is watch how I walk, and then now he says walk how I walk. We don't just watch it and go, hey, Jesus did some really great things. We go, that's the way that I'm called to live as well. Now, I know the pushback, or I don't know the pushback, but I expect the pushback, right? But Jesus doesn't have my boss, maybe. Jesus doesn't know my calendar. Jesus doesn't have my kids. Jesus doesn't have the commitments that I have. And all of those are fair points. He doesn't have any of those things. But Jesus also carried a tremendous weight. Jesus was also pretty busy doing some pretty important things. And somehow he still managed to live unhurried and at the rhythm that God had set out from the very beginning. So why is it so difficult for us? And then here's the answer to the question. I asked you the question, now I'm going to tell you the answer. I don't want you to figure it out on your own. Here's what I think the answer is. The problem for most of us isn't really that we're too busy. That's what we think. I'm too busy. The problem is that we're trying to live at a pace that God never intended for us to live. That's what the problem is. It's not that we're too busy. What we have to do, we have to do. The problem is the way that we're viewing rest, and that we're missing the rhythm that God has really intended us to have. We keep thinking, if I can just get through this week, if I can just finish this project, if I can just pay off this debt, if I can just get through the kids through this season, then life will slow down. You don't have to raise your hands because I'm pretty sure we've all said that. If I can just get through this season of life, then at the next season, things will change and I can do things differently. But the problem is it doesn't. If anything, the pace quickens and the demand increases as you move into the next season. We were not created to live at that pace. From the very beginning, God built rest into the rhythm of creation. He built this sacred pattern of work and worship, of effort and enjoyment, this pattern of doing and being. But somewhere along the way, we lost that rhythm. Genesis really reads with this rhythm, Genesis 1, the creation. And somewhere along the ways, we made it into some rhythm that isn't a rhythm anymore. I can do that because I'm not a drummer. I have no idea about rhythm, right? We've created it into something. Our drummer knows rhythm. That's all I'm trying to say. We've created it into something that doesn't sound good. It doesn't make sense. It actually hurts our ears. And still we live in it. We've traded rest, we've traded peace and rest for productivity and sleeplessness. We chose that. We wanted that. And then we made rest into being what it's not. It was never about inactivity. It was about intimacy with God. That's what rest was supposed to be. It's not I don't sit back and do anything. It's I sit back and I do whatever with him. It's not the absence of movement. It is the presence of God in our lives. It is not running from responsibility, which is what we expect for a long day work. I need to decompress. I'm going to cut this on Do Not Disturb, and I'm going to do nothing. We're not running from responsibility. It's supposed to be running back to relationship with God. That's what Jesus has come. That's what he says. He says, come to me, all who are weary, all who are burdened, and I will give you rest. Jesus says, I want to reset the rhythm for you. I want to put you back where it is you're supposed to be. So maybe the call today for us isn't simply to just be less busy. Don't hear that. That's not what I want you to do. I want you to go out today and clear your schedule and say, I'm just not going to do stuff, right? That's not, you're missing the point. The call today isn't simply to be less busy. It's to remember that the God who rested on the seventh day still reigns on this day. R-E-I-G-N-S, not R-A-I-N. Reigns on this day. That means he's still in control. That means he's still calling whatever the shots. The world will move on if I step out of it for just a little bit and into his presence. Maybe it's to realize that rest doesn't mean a clear calendar, but it means that I have a clear heart and mind. That I have a clear conscience when it comes to living the way that he's asked me to live. Maybe what rest really is none of those things that we think it is, and it's just us accepting this invitation from Jesus when he says, hey, come to me, you who are weary and overburdened, and I will give you rest. Maybe rest is just accepting Jesus' invitation to the old way of life. It doesn't have to be this really weird, kind of difficult, abstract thing for us to understand. It's really just us going, Jesus, what did you mean by this? And moving into that presence. Worship team, you can come up. And then here's where I want us to kind of pray. There's a couple things that I've kind of given here as prayer prompts, and I'll pray, and maybe you will, and maybe you won't. Maybe something else is stuck in your mind here. But I want you to, when we're praying, look at the rhythm of your life. Is it the rhythm that God has set for you, or is it the rhythm that someone else has set for you? I'm not telling you to quit your job tomorrow. right? That is not what I'm hearing. Don't call me tomorrow and like, I quit my job because I'm not living under his rhythm no more. You missed what I'm saying, right? Because it's not just what you do 8 to 5. It's what you do 24 hours a day. It's really the rhythm of rest that God has called for us. So help us to trust into his rhythm. Maybe it means to lay down some of what you're carrying. Maybe for many of us, we take on too much. We're trying to do too much and simply saying, I can trust someone else with this, or I can just not do this and it's okay. There are things like that in your lives. I guarantee you there are things like that in your lives. Maybe it's just to say, God, what I need more than anything is I just need you to, I am so caught up on what I produce and getting to the next level that I think that's where my identity is. Maybe what you just need is to go, God, I am not what I make. I am what you have made me to be. I am yours. I belong to you. And maybe you have no idea about any of this stuff. It's the first time you've ever thought about rest. You thought you had it nailed because you're getting 8 hours every day and your watch says, good job, keep it up. Mine tells me that was not enough most of the time. But you just need to say, I'm going to just steady my soul. I'm just going to be quiet. One of the Psalms where David writes, he says, I have quieted myself. He didn't just wake up and just like, oh, yeah, I just am. I'm a pretty quiet and calm person. He says, I have chosen to steady myself. I have chosen to be still in the presence of God. So maybe that's where you are. But my guess is all of us are losing sleep when it comes to busyness. And that is not the way that God has called us to live. So stand with me if you would before we pray. Lord, we're just always grateful for your love, your grace, your mercy. We're grateful for the way that you pour into our lives. Lord, we're grateful for the way that you provide for us in ways that we can't imagine. Lord, sometimes it is in ways that we don't see. Sometimes, Lord, it's in ways that we think we did it. We provided. But Lord, help us to step back out of ourselves at moments and go, God, you are the one who has constantly loved and cared for us. And Lord, when we do that, when we intentionally focus on you, then what we see is you've called us to live life differently than the way that we live it. You have set this rhythm of work and rest in motion from the very beginning that somehow we got turned out of whack. And rest became the reward for work rather than work coming out of rest. It almost might not sound like very much, but it's huge in the way that you've designed it to work. And Lord, anytime we take what you've designed and we turn it around, Lord, that very simply it's sinful. But Lord, even more than that, it breaks who we are because it's not the way that we were designed to be. So Lord, help us with this shift that needs to happen in our minds. The one where we recognize your rhythm of rest and work is better than the world's rhythm of demand and relentlessness. Lord, help us to recognize that it really comes down to us being able to just trust that you are who you say you are. But Lord, for all of our lives, we've been told this is how it is. And so, Lord, we're not going to solve it. We're not going to fix it. We're not going to turn around in a day, except maybe with your incredible transformation power in our lives. But Lord, it's going to take time. It's going to take intentionality. It's going to take us looking at our schedule this week and going, I will not do this thing. Until I first rest in the Lord. And then that's what empowers us for every moment beyond that. So Lord, my guess is we're all tired. We're all exhausted. We're all worn out. We're all overextended. We think if I just decompress, if I just get an extra hour of sleep, then I'll just start the whole process over again tomorrow. And it doesn't, Lord. It's never ending. We never rest with that mentality. So, Lord, what we need is a foundational change. Lord, we need something changed deep down within us. Where we look back and we recognize your design. And we go, if I really want to be effective, if I really want to be successful, if I really want to rest the way that I'm designed and intended to rest, it doesn't happen the way I've been doing it. It happens when I find a place in you. So, Lord, help us to find a place in you. So here's what I want you to try and do this week. I want you to set aside some time that you would normally set aside for rest from your work, and instead set it aside for worship, for relationship with Jesus. And I want you to go, what on earth does that even mean? That is great. I want you to wrestle with that question. I want you to figure that out. Because I can give you a list, but if it meant nothing to you, it meant nothing to you. So I want you to talk about it in your small group. Let it be the first question you'll ask. What does it mean to rest in God? I want you to talk about it this week. If you don't have a small group, it's a great opportunity for you to get in it. You know what they're going to be discussing this week. So your excuse was, I don't know what they're talking about. Now you know. That's what they're going to be talking about. Or maybe you just want to reach out to me or Pastor Macy. She knows what we're doing today, and we'll talk about it with you. But here's the other part that I want you to know. For over a year, I kind of went, in my mind, I just kept going, if I could just get to, I was exhausted, I was tired, and I just kind of kept going, if I could just get to sabbatical, I'll make it. If I can just get to August, I'll make it. And that is really reflective of what I was struggling with. If I could just get to August, I'll make it. And then I got to August, and it wasn't any less busy. So what God said to me is what I'm saying to you. You're doing all of it wrong. It shouldn't, can I just get to August? Can I just get to my vacation? Can I just get to 8 o'clock so I can go to bed? Can I just get to 5 o'clock when I clock out? We're living life wrong. It's not the rhythm we're called to live at. So my rhythm has been different. Because 7 weeks, 7 months, 7 years is a long time to look forward for the next one. I got to find a way to live better now. So I would encourage you, stop just saying if I can just get to, and find a way to find the rhythm of rest that God has for you now. Not later, now. Have a great week, BNC family. We'll see you next Sunday on site, online, 10 a.m.